Nobody on earth or in heaven is going to help you. You can pray, and to that which you pray to is the creation of your own thought.
In 1929, a 34-year-old man stood in front of 3,000 of his own followers and dissolved the church that had been built to worship him. He didn't resign. He didn't reform it. He took the most elaborate spiritual organization ever assembled around a single living person, global, funded, with him installed at the center as the awaited teacher of the age. And he took it apart, on stage, in front of the people who had given their lives to it. Then he handed back the money, the land, the title, all of it. His name was Jiddu Krishnamurti, and the reason he gave was 4 words long. Truth is a pathless land. An ocean away, another man was about to spend his entire life doing the opposite, building the role Krishnamurti had just torn down, performing the part of the liberated sage so completely that rooms went silent when he opened his mouth. His name was Alan Watts. One refused to be the teacher. One became the most quoted teacher in the Western world. And here is what nobody tells you about these 2 men. The one who refused was hiding far more than the one who performed. I'm Andrew, and this is Daily Tao Wisdom, where we go back to the source. Not the quotes on Instagram, not the self-help repackaging, the actual stories, the actual figures, the actual wisdom, and what it means for your life right now. In our last video on Alan Watts knew the truth. He just couldn't live it. We left a man on a houseboat, drinking, brilliant, and openly admitting that he could describe freedom better than anyone alive, and could not consistently live it. He called himself a sincere fraud. Today we put him next to the one man of his century who took the opposite path all the way to its end. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the man who refused to be a guru and the man who performed being one were answering the exact same question, and why the answer each gave reveals something uncomfortable about the gap you're living in right now between what you know and what you actually do. 2 boys, 2 empires of belief. To understand what these 2 men were fighting about, you have to understand what each of them was handed. Start with Krishnamurti. The year is 1909. A beach at Adyar in southern India, near the world headquarters of a movement called the Theosophical Society. A strange, sprawling blend of Eastern mysticism, Victorian occultism, and genuine spiritual hunger that had captured tens of thousands of educated Westerners. A senior theosophist named Charles Leadbeater is walking along that beach when he sees a thin, malnourished, unremarkable local boy, 14 years old, failing in school, described by almost everyone who met him as vacant, even slow. Leadbeater looks at him and announces that this boy has the most extraordinary aura he has ever seen. That this boy is the vehicle, the physical body that the coming world teacher, the next great spiritual master of humanity, will inhabit and speak through. Sit with how strange that is. A malnourished schoolboy is plucked off a beach and told he is the Messiah the world has been waiting for. What follows is one of the most ambitious projects in the history of modern religion. Krishnamurti is adopted by Annie Besant, the formidable president of the society. He is groomed, educated, dressed in fine clothes, taken to England, paraded through Europe, and in 1911, an entire organization is built around him, the Order of the Star in the East. Its single purpose is to prepare the world for the teacher Krishnamurti is destined to become. At its height, it has tens of thousands of members across dozens of countries, land, castles, a magazine, a movement, all of it pointing at one young man like a loaded weapon. He didn't ask for any of it. That detail matters. Everything Krishnamurti was given, he was given before he was old enough to refuse. Now the other man. Alan Watts is born in 1915 in Kent, England, the son of a rubber company clerk. No movement builds itself around him. No one calls him a messiah. As we traced in the Watts videos, he reads his way into Taoism and Zen as a teenager, sails to America at 23 with $40 and a trunk of books, and constructs his entire identity as a teacher of Eastern wisdom out of nothing but talent and nerve. So here's the contrast that runs underneath everything that follows. One man was handed the role of liberated sage on a silver platter, by force, before he could consent. The other man wanted that role so badly, he built it from scratch. And both of them, independently, arrived at the same conclusion about the human mind. A conclusion that would put them on a collision course with the very role each one was occupying. Everyone around them assumed that a teacher's job was to lead people toward freedom. Both men were about to discover why that assumption was the problem itself. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Refused to Be a God. To understand how a person hands back the role of Messiah and means it, you have to go back 4 years before the stage at Oman, to a ship entering the Suez Canal, and a telegram. Krishnamurti had a brother, Nitya, 3 years younger, his closest companion since childhood, the one piece of his old life the Theosophists had pulled into the prophecy alongside him. Through all the strangeness of being raised as a god, Nitya was the constant, his confidant, his anchor, the only person he could speak to plainly. Nitya had tuberculosis, and as his health collapsed in the early 1920s, the leaders of the movement, Besant, Leadbeater, the people who spoke for the hidden spiritual masters, assured Krishnamurti again and again that Nitya would not die, that he was essential to the great work, that the forces protecting the order would protect him. Krishnamurti believed them. In November 1925, on a sea voyage, the telegram reached him. Nitya was dead, 27 years old. The people with him said the news broke him completely, and it broke something larger than grief. The masters had promised. The hierarchy had promised. The promise was a lie, or worse, a comforting story told by people who simply did not know. The entire apparatus that had built him into a messiah had just failed at the one thing he cared about more than any prophecy. He came through that grief changed, quieter, and no longer willing to take anyone's word, Besant's, Leadbeater's, the masters, anyone's, about the nature of truth. He had trusted the authorities completely, and the authorities had been catastrophically wrong. You can draw a straight line from that telegram to the stage 4 years later. August 3rd, 1929. Oman, Holland. A camp full of believers, 3,000 of them, gathered for their annual gathering, waiting to hear their teacher confirm what they already knew. That the long-promised world teacher had finally arrived in the body of the man standing before them. Krishnamurti is now 34. He has lived inside this prophecy for 20 years, and he opens his mouth and tells them, gently, that he is dissolving the entire thing. He tells a small story first, a parable about the devil. The devil and a friend are walking down a street, and they watch a man bend down, pick something up off the ground, and slip it into his pocket. The friend asks what the man found. A piece of truth, the devil says. His friend is alarmed. Surely that's bad for the devil's business. Not at all, the devil replies, perfectly calm. I am going to help him organize it. That is the whole teaching in a joke. The moment you take something living and build an institution around it, a church, an order, a method, a brand, you kill it. You turn truth into a cage and then sell tickets to the cage. So Krishnamurti says the sentence that will define the rest of his life. Truth is a pathless land. You cannot approach it by any road, any religion, any organization, any teacher. No one can lead you there, because there is no there, and there is no road. And therefore, he tells the 3,000 people who have built their lives around following him, you must stop following me. He dissolves the order. He returns the property and the money to the people who donated it. He walks away from the single most powerful spiritual platform any individual had been handed in the modern era. Here's the first thing most people miss. This was not a small act of humility. This was the most radical thing a person in his position could possibly do. He was being offered the role that Alan Watts would spend 30 years trying to build for himself. Guru, authority, the one who knows. And he looked at it and understood, instantly, that accepting it would make him a liar. Think about your own version of this. Think about the role you've been handed, or built, that other people now rely on you to keep performing. The expert, the strong one, the one with the answers, the one who has it together. There is enormous pressure, once people start treating you as that person, to keep being that person, because an entire structure now depends on it. Krishnamurti tore the structure down at the exact moment it was about to make him a king. And that refusal would become its own kind of fame. Which is where the trouble starts, because the man who refused to be worshipped spent the next 57 years being worshipped anyway. Chapter 2. The Man Who Wanted the Throne. Krishnamurti burned. Now run the tape on the other man. While Krishnamurti was dismantling the apparatus of the sage, Alan Watts was assembling one. Not out of arrogance exactly, out of genuine love for the material and a genuine gift for transmitting it. He becomes the voice. The lectures at the American Academy of Asian Studies, the radio broadcasts on KPFA in Berkeley, the 17 books, the recordings that still circulate 50 years after his death, with millions of plays. Watts stepped into precisely the role Krishnamurti had refused, the Western man on the stage, the one who explains the Tao, the one rooms fall silent for, and he was extraordinary at it. In our video, Alan Watts knew the truth. He just couldn't live it. We traced the cost of that performance. The 3 marriages, the drinking, the houseboat in Sausalito where the scotch was always open, and his own astonishing honesty about the gap, the distance between the effortless freedom he described from the stage and the very effortful, very human, often unfree life he actually lived. He named it himself. I am a sincere fraud, he said. Everything I tell you is true, and I am living proof that knowing the truth is not the same as living it. So look at what we have. 2 men, the same century, the same essential message about the self, and opposite strategies for the unbearable problem at the heart of being a spiritual teacher. Krishnamurti's strategy: refuse the role, tear down anything that turns the teacher into an authority, insist there is no path, no method, no one to follow. Watts's strategy: take the role, fully, publicly, professionally, and then be honest that you can't live up to it. Stand on the stage and admit the stage is a kind of lie you're telling for a good reason. It looks, at first, like Krishnamurti chose integrity and Watts chose performance. That's the easy read. It's also wrong, and the reason it's wrong is the most interesting thing in this entire story. But before we get there, we have to see the thing they actually agreed on. Because underneath the opposite strategies, they were pointing at the identical truth. And we'll come back to the place where it all reverses. Because the man who looks like the honest one in this story turns out to have hidden the deepest contradiction of all. And the man who called himself a fraud turns out to have been the more transparent of the two. Hold that. We're building toward it. Chapter 3. The same door, from opposite sides. Strip away the styles and listen to what each man was actually saying about you. Krishnamurti's core teaching, repeated for half a century in 1,000 talks, comes down to a single move that he made again and again until his audience's heads hurt. The observer is the observed. The one inside you who is watching your anger is not separate from the anger. The thinker is not separate from the thought. The self that wants to be free is made of the very stuff it's trying to escape. There is no little controller in the cockpit who can grab the wheel and steer you to enlightenment, because that controller is part of the problem, not the solution. Now Watts, the skin-encapsulated ego, he called it, the deep, unexamined Western assumption that you are a separate self locked inside a bag of skin, looking out at a world that is fundamentally not you. He spent 30 years arguing that this separate self is not a fact, it's a story. And almost all human suffering comes from defending a boundary that was never really there. Different vocabulary, same finger pointing at the same moon. The thing you call I, the manager, the controller, the anxious little self at the center of your experience, is not the thing that gets free. It is the thing that has to be seen through. And both of them knew exactly where this idea came from, even when they didn't name it. It is the oldest insight in Taoism. In our video, The True Story of Wu Wei, told by the man who refused to act, we traced how the watercourse way works. The river does not decide where to go. It does not strain toward the ocean. It follows the lowest available ground, and it arrives without ever having tried. Wu Wei is not laziness. It is action without the forcing, the self getting out of the way of what wants to happen anyway. Here is the modern mirror, and it's sharper than it looks. You have almost certainly tried to fix yourself. The therapy, the journaling, the discipline, the morning routine, the constant low-grade project of becoming a better, calmer, freer version of you. And you may have noticed that the harder you work on yourself, the more solid the self that needs working on becomes. The manager gets stronger, not weaker. You've felt this. The more you grip, the more there is to grip. Both men saw that trap clearly. They just walked toward the exit in completely different ways. And it's the way Krishnamurti chose that contains the flaw Watts spent years quietly circling. Chapter 4. The Trap, hidden inside the pathless land. Watts admired Krishnamurti. He said so in writing early in his career. He thought the man was pointing at something real, and then he put his finger on the exact place where Krishnamurti's teaching folds in on itself. And it's a critique that should stop you cold, because you have almost certainly fallen into it yourself. Krishnamurti told people, there is nothing you can do to become free. Every effort you make toward liberation is itself the ego trying to improve its own position. The seeking is the problem. The method is the cage. Just see, directly now, without technique, that the observer is the observed, and you are already free. Watts looked at that and asked the obvious, devastating question. If every effort is phony, then what exactly is a person supposed to do when you tell them to stop making efforts? Because trying not to try is still trying. Working hard at not working at it is still working hard. You have handed your listener a command they physically cannot obey. Relax, or else. Be spontaneous, right now, on purpose. This is a double bind, and it is the cruelest one in all of spirituality, because it looks like freedom and functions like a trap. Krishnamurti spent 50 years telling enormous crowds that there was no path and no method, which became, for thousands of his most devoted listeners, the most demanding path and the most impossible method they had ever attempted. They sat in his audiences straining with every fiber to not strain, failing, by definition, in the exact instant they tried. You know this feeling, even if you've never read a word of Krishnamurti. It's the meditation app that turns stillness into a streak you're anxious about breaking. It's the moment you tell yourself to stop overthinking and immediately begin overthinking your overthinking. It's just be present, becoming one more thing you're failing at. The instruction to let go, delivered as an order, becomes a fresh way to grip. And here's the Taoist heart of Watts's objection. Water does not try not to try. The river isn't practicing non-forcing. It simply isn't forcing. There's no effort in it to begin with, including no effort to be effortless. The moment you make effortlessness a goal you must achieve, you've smuggled the whole machinery of striving back in through the side door and hung a Taoist sign on it. Krishnamurti, in trying to abolish the path completely, accidentally built the steepest one of all. Watts, by contrast, kept the path, kept the practice, kept the work, and just told you not to mistake the work for the destination. Do the reflection. Then close the notebook and go outside and let it work without you supervising it. That difference sounds small. It is enormous. And it points to a second, much more personal place where Krishnamurti's pure refusal hit a crack, one he kept covered for the rest of his life. Chapter 5. The pathless man walked in secret. I know this is a long one. Stay with me, because this next turn is where everything we've built so far reverses, and it's the part almost every retelling of these two men leaves out entirely. In 1991, 5 years after Krishnamurti died, a book appeared that complicated the saint. It was written by Radha Rajagopal Sloss, a woman who had grown up inside Krishnamurti's inner circle, treated almost as his daughter. Her mother was Rosalind Rajagopal. Her father, D. Rajagopal, was Krishnamurti's manager, editor, and the man who ran the practical machinery of his life for decades. The book was called Lives in the Shadow with J. Krishnamurti, and it revealed that the man who taught total honesty, total freedom, and the end of all hidden authority had carried on a secret romantic relationship with Rosalind, the wife of his closest associate, for roughly 25 years. I want to be careful here, because your skepticism is correct and welcome. This account comes primarily from one source, written by someone close to the wronged father, and Krishnamurti's devoted foundations have contested aspects of it. People who build their lives around a teacher do not give up the saint easily, and people who were hurt by him do not give up the wound easily. The full truth is genuinely hard to recover. Hold it loosely, but even held loosely, the shape of it lands like a verdict. Set the two men side by side one more time. Alan Watts performed freedom on a stage and told you, openly, that he could not live it. He put the gap on the table. I am a sincere fraud. The drinking was not hidden. The marriages were not hidden. He made his own contradiction part of the public record, almost the point of it. Krishnamurti refused the stage refused the title, refused all authority, and then, for a quarter of a century, lived a private contradiction he never disclosed to the followers who organized their entire inner lives around his radical honesty. The man who said there must be no gap between the teaching and the life appears to have had one of the widest gaps of all. He just kept it in the dark. This is the reversal the easy version of the story can never deliver. The performer was, in the end, more transparent about his unfreedom than the refuser. Watts said, "Here's the gap. Watch me fail to cross it." Krishnamurti said, "There is no gap," while quietly standing inside one. Now connect it to the Taoist idea we keep circling. There is a concept in the Tao Te Ching called Te, usually translated as virtue, but that's far too small. Te is the quiet power that real integrity gives off without announcing itself. Lao Tzu puts it with a knife's edge. The highest T does not try to be virtuous, and so it has virtue. The lower T tries to be virtuous, and so it has none. Don't skip past that. The person who performs groundedness is not grounded. The performance is the evidence of the absence. Krishnamurti's entire public identity became the performance of the man with no performance, the guru of no gurus, the authority on having no authority. And the more loudly a person announces their freedom from contradiction, the more you should wonder what the announcement is covering. Watts, who performed openly and confessed the performance, may have ended up with more tea than the man who performed purity so well that even he seems to have believed it. That is not a reason to dismiss Krishnamurti. It is a reason to take him more seriously, as a human being and not a statue. Because what both men leave you with, once you stop needing either of them to be a saint, is something you can actually use. Chapter 6. What the refuser and the performer both got right. Stop choosing between them. That's the move. The temptation is to pick a winner. Krishnamurti the brave refuser, Watts the honest fraud. And the temptation is exactly the kind of thinking both of them were trying to dissolve. Take what each one got right and leave the trap each one fell into. Krishnamurti was right about the cage. No organization, no teacher, no method, no app, no title can hand you freedom. And the moment you let one try, you've traded the living thing for a crystallized copy of it. The devil organizes your piece of truth. That part is permanent. His refusal of the throne in 1929 remains one of the most clear-eyed acts of the century. He saw that the role of the one who knows is a prison even when it's gold-plated, and he walked out. Watts was right about the gap. You cannot will your way out of the self by trying harder not to try. The work is real and necessary, but the work is not the arrival, and pretending you've arrived is the one move that guarantees you haven't. Honesty about the distance between knowing and living is not a failure of practice. It is the practice. Put them together and you get something neither man fully held in one hand. Refuse the cage, like Krishnamurti, and stop pretending you've crossed the gap, like Watts. Don't hand your freedom to an authority, and don't perform a freedom you haven't lived. Tear down the throne and admit you're still learning to walk. Lao Tzu said it 25 centuries before either of them, in 5 words that contain both. Knowing that you don't know is best. Not the false certainty of the Messiah. Not the false humility of the refuser who secretly thinks he's arrived. Just the honest, open, slightly uncomfortable position of a person who sees the water clearly and admits they are still, often, fighting the current. Which brings us, finally, to you, and to the very specific gap you brought into this video without telling me about it. I know what you're thinking. This is a beautiful collision. Two of the most magnetic minds of the 20th century, arriving at the same truth and breaking on it in opposite directions. Fascinating. And you have a meeting tomorrow, a relationship that's gone quiet, and a version of yourself you keep almost becoming and keep sliding back from. So let's make this concrete. 3 things you can actually do this week, not over a lifetime of practice, this week, with what these 2 men paid for in full. 1. Find your pathless path. Krishnamurti's trap was turning no method into the most punishing method of all. You almost certainly have one running right now. Some instruction you've turned into a stick to beat yourself with. Be present, let go, stop overthinking, don't care what people think. That has quietly become one more arena where you're failing. Name it. Out loud, if you can. I have turned letting go into a thing I'm anxious about not doing well enough. The moment you see that the effort to not effort is still effort, the double bind loosens on its own. You don't fix it, you just stop feeding it. That recognition is the whole move, and it takes about 10 seconds and a willingness to feel slightly ridiculous. 2. Put the gap on the table. This is Watts's gift, and it's a strange kind of permission. You do not have to live a truth perfectly before you're allowed to speak it or stand for it. Watts taught freedom he hadn't mastered, openly, and the openness was the integrity. Krishnamurti hid his gap, and the hiding was the failure. So pick one place where you're quietly pretending, performing the grounded one, the recovered one, the person who's past the thing you're visibly not past, and tell one honest person the true sentence. I talk like I've handled this. I haven't, fully. I'm in the middle of it. That sentence does more for your actual integrity than another year of trying to embody the finished version before anyone's allowed to see the draft. 3. Name one cage and loosen one grip. Krishnamurti's real gift was the refusal. There is some role you've accepted, a title, an identity, a follower count, a reputation, a version of yourself other people now depend on, that has started to own you instead of the other way around. You can feel the weight of maintaining it. The performance costs you something every day in a currency you don't quite track. You don't have to dissolve your whole order on a stage in front of 3,000 people. Loosen one grip. Say the unsure thing in the room where you're supposed to be certain. Let one person see you not have the answer. Decline one small piece of the role this week and notice that the structure does not collapse and that you can breathe slightly more. A confession, since this channel doesn't pretend the practice is easy. I spent a stretch of a few years deep inside Krishnamurti's instruction to drop all method, and I turned it, with real dedication, into the single most effortful spiritual project of my life. I was straining, daily, to not strain, grating myself on my spontaneity. It took me an embarrassingly long time to notice that I had walked straight into the trap Watts named decades earlier, and that the way out wasn't to try harder at not trying. It was to do the ordinary work, then put it down, and let the rest happen without my supervision. The water was always going to find its level. I was just standing in it, frantically helping. If this channel has become the place you come to think clearly about the things that actually run your life, subscribe. We go this deep on these figures every week. And drop a comment with this one. Which are you more often? The performer who admits the gap, or the refuser who hides it? The one who says, "I'm a mess and working on it" out loud? Or the one who quietly insists they've transcended the thing they're still standing in? I'm genuinely curious because the answer tells you exactly where your real work is hiding. Go back to Oman, August 1929. 3,000 people in a field, waiting to be told that the teacher had finally come. And the teacher standing up and telling them there is no teacher, no path, no order, no hymn to follow, and dissolving the whole cathedral around his own head. We see it differently now. It is still one of the bravest acts of refusal in the modern spiritual record. A man handing back the most power anyone in his position had ever been offered. And it is also, we now know, the beginning of a 57-year performance of having no performance, by a man carrying a hidden contradiction as heavy as any he condemned in others. Both things are true. The refusal was real. The hiding was real. He was not a fraud, and he was not a saint. He was a human being standing in the same gap the rest of us stand in, having found a more elegant way to look like he wasn't. So here's the question I'll leave open. The one Krishnamurti and Watts spent their whole lives circling from opposite sides. It is not which man was right. They were both right, and both trapped. The question is quieter than that, and it's pointed directly at you. When you finally meet the gap between what you know and how you live, and you will this week, probably more than once, are you going to perform your way across it, or refuse to admit it's there? Because there is a third option, and it's the only one that ever actually works. You can simply stand in it, honestly, without the performance and without the denial, and let the water do what water does. Try that once this week. The next time you catch yourself either pretending you've arrived or pretending there was never anywhere to go, stop and just admit where you actually are. Out loud to one person or only to yourself. That admission is not the failure of the path. It is the pathless land Krishnamurti was pointing at, and the gap Watts had the honesty to live inside. Same place, different doors. Next week, we follow the thread both of these men pointed toward, and neither fully walked. To the philosopher who stared into the collapse of European meaning, declared God dead, and found at the bottom of that darkness something that looked unmistakably like the Tao. Friedrich Nietzsche read Schopenhauer, who read the Upanishads, which traced directly back to Lao Tzu. The connection is personal, strange, and almost entirely untold. This is daily Tao wisdom. The rest is yours.